Hello, everybody. Some good things in the world this week. Are you watching any of the World Cup? I know soccer is not the big deal in the United States yet that it is around the world, but it's great to see all the fans cheering for their team. I enjoyed watching the New York Knicks celebrate their NBA championship with the big parade. They say 2 million people came to see it. And I want to say that for me and for many people, sports can be a tonic to the turmoil that's in the world. Many people participate and cheer on sports for this reason. And then also this week, of course, the Obama Presidential Library. I watched bits and pieces of that during the week. Maybe you've seen it. I liked the tone and the substance of that whole event. It reminded us of good times in the White House. And then, of course, as always, Sunday in the house. Grace and peace to all of you today. I'm Dwight A. Moody, your host for this commentary on life, politics, and Jesus. One of the good things today is this week by week, steady, sane commentary built around the red letter Jesus. More than ever, we need that red letter Jesus. We need to ask the question. It's an old question. It's not a new question. What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do for the immigrant, for the poor, for the rich, for the incarcerated? Do you know that every incarceration story in the Bible is told with empathy toward those on the inside of the bars? In the biblical stories, the wicked are always on the jailers. They're the soldiers, the powerful people that are incarcerating people. The empathy and sympathy in the biblical stories is always those under the care of God, those on the inside. Joseph, you remember, was put in jail. Jeremiah was thrown into a cistern. John, the prophetic preacher, thrown into jail and then beheaded. Jesus himself. Paul and John were told to remember those in prison. Do you know that? I know of no exhortation to remember those who hold the keys, guard the doors, make the rulings. What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do about the wars in the world? I saw a sweatshirt this week. Maybe you've seen it. Beatitudes, not bombs. That expresses my feeling, and it directs our attention directly toward the red letter Jesus. The Beatitudes, of course, the opening comments and statements in what we call the Sermon on the Mount in the 5th chapter of Matthew's Gospel. The Pope Leo, the American Pope, recently said that God does not hear the prayers of people who are pursuing war or starting wars or bombing people. It's hard to argue with that. What would Jesus do? You may know that this question, what would Jesus do, comes from a book, a novel that was published in 1896. What is that, 130 years ago? It began as a weekly serialized story narrative published in a local newspaper. It's the story of a typical small town church gathered in Sunday worship, as I remember, when the worship was interrupted by a sick and homeless man who collapsed, I think, in the sanctuary during the worship service. And that set in motion a year-long examination by various people in the congregation and in the community as to what would Jesus do in this situation. It's a powerful question. It's a good question. It's an urgent question that we need to constantly ask ourselves. Now, some of you will remember that, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it became a big merchandising thing. People would wear jewelry with that question on it, or They would have T-shirts and stuff on it. I never got into that. Maybe you did, I don't know. If it helps us remember the question and to focus our attention on the red letter Jesus, that's not a bad thing. We need things that will constantly push us to remember Jesus. This is the perennial question of all of us who claim to be followers of Jesus. What would Jesus do in this situation? Now, we know that Jesus did not face many of the questions that confound us today. Big questions like nuclear power and AI and global trade and modern technology. Not even books and pictures. The gospel records do not tell us how Jesus felt or acted in regards to abortion or sexual orientation or even race. There's almost nothing related to religions other than Judaism in the narratives about Jesus. And yet today we live beside Jews and Muslims and Sikhs and Hindus and atheists and that whole group of people called the de-churched and the unchurched. And we always have to ask ourselves, in all of these new and emerging situations, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus respond to my neighbor who's a Sikh or my boss who is a Muslim or my children who are de-churched? The only recourse we have are the gospel accounts in our Bibles. I have my red letter Bible with me today, as always. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I hope you have a red letter Bible. We have to saturate our minds and imaginations with the Jesus we do know. We have to ask God to give us inspiration and guidance and direction and patience and wisdom and humility. Humility for sure. Because there's always the possibility, and often it is the case, that we're wrong in the way we answer that question. What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do about the ordination of women or political engagement with this party or that party? What would Jesus do about small boats racing around the Caribbean? What would Jesus do? We want answers, but we may not have clear guidance, and our best judgment may be wrong. Our neighbor may be right. We might be wrong. That's why the Bible calls for us to be humble people, to have a sense of humility about things. You remember when one man came to Jesus and asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" What did Jesus do? He responded with a question. Well, what do you think? What do you think? That is a gateway to dialogue and conversation and collaboration. What would Jesus do? What do you think? How do you see this? Religious people too often present themselves as knowing everything, as having a corner on the truth, as knowing instinctively and emphatically what we should do, and telling everybody else what we should do. For some people, this comes across as authority and knowledge and certainty, and even inspiration, as having a word from the Lord, having a gospel truth. But sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Jesus always comes across as a humble man, as the messenger of God with a word of community and forgiveness and kindness and courage, especially courage when faced with the majority that wields power. Power of life and death, power of rich and poor, power of truth and false. Yet we know that those in power, any power, are often wrong, are often dangerous, are themselves often deceived. Jesus is a person of courage. That comes through very clear in the gospel narrative. Not bombastic, not in your face, not carrying a sword and rallying the troops. No, he had a quiet, compelling kind of courage that we all need. It goes right along with the kindness that he always exhibited, the conviction, as well as his tendency to ask questions. Jesus had a vision of what the future might be, as well as a memory of what the past was. And we're here today on this Sunday in the house, as we are week by week, generally 70 to 80 of us by the time the week is over, who have watched some or all of this show. And we're drawn together by this conviction. We want to follow Jesus. This is the meaning of salvation. Not waiting for something to happen after we die or something to happen when Jesus comes. No, the meaning of salvation is the desire and the power to follow Jesus. This is true religion. This is true holiness. So we're gathered today by the miracle of technology, cameras, and this microphone. We gather to help each other follow Jesus. We want to know Jesus. We want to love Jesus. We want to be like Jesus. We've gathered today to think about Jesus in the context of life and politics, in the context of home and work, in the context of community and country, and also increasingly in the context of the worldwide human community. How can we help each other follow Jesus? That's the question we have. My question is always, as I prepare to speak to you and share what's on my heart, what's going on in my world, how I read the Bible, my concern is always, what issue is pressing upon you? Some weeks I hear from you and you send me questions, you call me with comments, you write me with concerns. I always appreciate this. What issue is pressing upon you? Is your financial position precarious? Are you in a relationship that's near the breaking point? Have you lost your job? I know what that feels like. I've lost more than one job in my life. Did you get a diagnosis this week that surprised you, that sapped your faith, that discouraged you? I have a friend in another state that posted in public on Facebook a troubling testimony about the after effects of her cancer treatment. Her demeanor was a mixture of resignation and resolve. She was making her confession in public, telling a story of her struggle. It's the struggle of many, many people. What do you need this week? Strength, wisdom, guidance, inspiration, a new opportunity? Is there somebody in your circle of friends in desperate straits, in a hard situation, maybe even in jail? Are you struggling to keep hope alive, to believe that God is real, to stay attached to Jesus? Do you want to be full of the Spirit? So the red letter words today that I want to repeat for you, very famous words. Come unto me, Jesus said. Everybody who's weary, tired, hard-pressed, I will give you rest. Take upon yourself my way of living. Now, Jesus actually used the metaphor of my yoke. Take my yoke upon you. But most of us no longer live in a culture where we have anything to do with yokes. like you would yoke up oxen or horses to do the work. What Jesus is saying, take up my way of living, my way of thinking, my way of feeling. Take up my way of kindness and courage. Learn from me. I am gentle and humble, Jesus said. You will find rest for your souls. Some of us need that today and every day. All of us need it from time to time. That's the invitation of Jesus today. Those are the words of Jesus in response to our question, what would Jesus do? This is why we focus on the red letter of Jesus' speech. We're not trying to follow Moses, as important as he was. We're not trying to pattern our lives after Esther or Jeremiah or Habakkuk. It's Jesus. We do not pledge allegiance to Paul the Apostle or Lydia, the wonderful benefactor in Philippi. We're not trying to imitate John the Apostle with all of his visions now in the book of Revelation. We can't even understand those, let alone shape our life by them. We have pledged faithfulness to Jesus, to his way of life, his way of seeing things, his way of responding to people, his way of believing in God and behaving in the world, his way of building community with the most unlikely of people. We are responding to his invitation. Yes, all these other people, these other texts and stories and thoughts and episodes, they're important. They can be inspirational, but they also can be misleading. Many of the characters in the Bible, some that I mentioned here today, made mistakes, bad mistakes, got into trouble, said things that were corrected by Jesus. All of those people can lead us astray. For instance, this has led many people astray, and I've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again today. The book of Genesis, chapter 12, includes a statement that's part of the promise made to Abraham. Now, you know that Abraham, as the old song says, is the father of many nations. You may know that Jews, Christians, and Muslims all trace our heritage to Abraham. We all revere Abraham. We honor him for his courage to leave his home and go to a new country, start something new, try something new. But the Lord, according to the text, says to Abraham, I will bless the people who bless you, Abraham. I will curse the people who curse you. And some people today take that statement to mean that we cannot criticize the modern state of Israel in any way. And whatever Israel needs to do to enforce its strength and secure its place in the Middle East, whatever they want to do is okay and permissible and blessed and approved by God. If we want to be blessed, we have to support Israel and Netanyahu and whoever else is making decisions about bombing people. And you know, we all know, Israel's been on a bombing spree now for 2 years. Gaza, Iran, Lebanon, yesterday and today, in spite of some kind of peace accord or document of understanding. Israel's been on a 75-year land-grabbing campaign, little by little, taking over all the Palestinian territory where millions of people were living. And we're told we have to support all this. We can't speak out against it because this is the will of God. God's blessing is Israel. The American ambassador in Israel is a Christian Zionist somebody who thinks like this. He's a Baptist preacher who shows up in pictures in the White House, leading the cheers for Israel as they wage war against, pretty much everybody. But here's my challenge. Can you find a single word in the gospel narratives from the lips of Jesus that support this type of political rhetoric or military policy? Can you find it? Send it to me. Show it to me. I can't find a single word. Jesus lived in a client state of the Roman Empire. The Jewish community where he lived, including Jerusalem, Galilee, everywhere he was, Bethlehem, was occupied by the foreign military empire, Rome. They occupied all of what we now call Palestine, or Judah, or Israel, or Jerusalem, whatever you want to call it. The Jewish people around Jesus in Galilee and Judah and in Jerusalem were clients of Rome. They paid taxes to Rome as well as to the temple. The occupying Roman soldiers were common. They were everywhere. Some of them were even fond of Jesus and his teaching. Some of them sent to Jesus for help. 2 weeks ago, we read about one of those soldiers, Cornelius. He was an Italian. He lived in Caesarea. He was drawn to Jesus, to the Jesus way. We have to remember what Jesus said about his own people, about his own culture, his own nation. Matthew 12:39, this is a wicked generation. He was talking about his own people. Quote, the people of Nineveh, to whom Jonah preached, and the queen of the south, who recognized the greatness of Solomon, they will testify against you, against us, he was saying, that is, referring to the Jewish people of his own time. Jesus said, your future is worse than your past. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. And later, Jesus predicted the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of Judah as the judgment of God upon Israel, upon his own people. The people of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they had rejected justice to people. They had rejected mercy and humility. They ignored kindness. They ignored the one sent by God, the Messiah of Israel, the Redeemer of all people, the one that God eventually raised from the dead. Jesus was not hesitant to judge his own people, to judge Israel, and to announce God's righteous judgment. He said, not one stone will be left upon another in this city of Jerusalem. We need to keep this spirit in mind during our own celebration of national identity and history. We, the United States of America, we are not God's most favorite nation. The United States will be held accountable for violations of justice and mercy, just like any other country, any other tribe, any other family. We want to celebrate the United States, of course. It's our place, it's our home. We want to celebrate every new burst of freedom. We want to celebrate the rule of law, the care for the environment, as well as the care for wave upon wave of immigrants and refugees. We want to celebrate and sustain the United States as a place of opportunity, not just for white people coming from Europe, but for people of all shades coming from every corner of the globe. People looking for stability and fairness, for opportunity, for safety, for freedom to live and travel and work and love and speak and worship. Freedom to marry and live in families and communities. Freedom to sing and dance and celebrate what is important. Freedom to, and the responsibility to care for our neighbors, to care for the poor, to contribute to the vitality and wealth of our country and also the world. Responsibility to learn and grow and be a neighbor to whomever God sends your way. This is what we're celebrating this year, our national achievement, 250 years. Here in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, we even have our own logo. Does your community have a logo? TR250. What are you going to do over the next couple of weeks? What is your community going to do? My community, Travelers Rest, we're going to dedicate a new park exhibit, a new memorial to a Revolutionary War heroine. I'd never heard of her. Dicey Langston, a native of South Carolina. She supported the rebel cause against the Loyalists, that is, those residents and citizens, and there were many of them, who wanted to stay loyal to the King of England. We don't hear too much about the division of thought and loyalty in the colonies during those times. We sometimes think that today that the divisions among us is deviating from the national mood and tradition. But the people of the United States, we have had a divided mind from the very beginning, especially during war. We certainly are divided now over foreign affairs and foreign policy and national policy, domestic affairs. I want to show you a picture of Dicey Langston. She's famous for siding with the rebels against the Loyalists. They're going to unveil a statue of her. Here she is defending her own father against the Loyalists who are threatening to kill both of them. Defending her father. I guess this is appropriate today because today's Father's Day. I'm a father of 2 fine, wonderful sons and 1 beautiful, talented daughter. I want to say grace and peace to all 3 of you. I'm the grandfather of 2, including Sam. You remember Sam was on the program last week. He talked to us about his ambition to win at least 1 amateur boxing competition and participate in 1 professional boxing match. We had his high school graduation party this week, and I took a picture of him, testing out his boxing style. Take a look. It looks great, doesn't it? Coming to a boxing ring near you. I'll keep you posted. And I want to honor my own father today. He's been deceased now 13 years. George Thomas Moody, 1923 to 2013. Truly a good and godly man. I've written a series of short articles about him. I've done some research into his life because he never talked to us about any of it. You can find all of those articles on my Meeting House website, themeetinghouse.net/GTM. GTM. That's George Thomas Moody. And here he is in 1945 with his crew for a B-26 bomber. He's the 3rd from the left. Can you look real close? 2nd Lieutenant Tom Moody. You know him as a minister, but for a short time early in his life, he was a bombardier in the Army Air Force. He never talked about it. Never. We didn't know much about it until after he died. He never talked about growing up as a tenant farmer in Kentucky, working in the factories of Detroit, graduating from the University of Kentucky with a degree in math, changing directions in his life to take up gospel work. I've put most of these articles in my new book, Eating That Gospel Pie. I corrected the publishing proofs this week. The book will be out this summer. We'll have it for the Tangle Tour of 26 this fall. I've been talking about this. We're going to start here in Greenville, travel to Nashville, Owensboro, Louisville, Lexington, Covington, Kentucky, finish up in Hendersonville, North Carolina. This week I was in Lexington, finished up finalizing plans for 2 events, one down at the Carnegie Center near Transylvania University, and the other out at the Pax Christi Roman Catholic Church, hosted by John Stowe, the Bishop of Lexington. I've got a couple of new books coming out this summer. I'm helping my son Ike finish up his book on his art, and I'm going to issue my first children's book featuring Fenwick the Frog. The book is entitled Fenwick Builds the Trail, and I think I have a preview to show you. Fenwick the Frog peers through the fog. The train, the very last train, the end of the swamp rabbit train. Mackenzie Elliott is the artist. It'll be available for the tour this fall. I hope you can come out to one of the events, buy one or more of the books. Pray for us. God bless you all today. Give you peace and comfort and friendship today. Thank you for joining these 30 minutes of commentary on life, politics, and Jesus. I'm Dwight A. Moody here in the Meeting House, Travelers Rest, South Carolina. I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you all.